Welcome to the Good Medicine Podcast, and this will be part 3 of the series called Yahweh, the Two-Faced God. I want to move away from all of this theology and various views and focus on something more personal in this podcast as it ties into this whole discussion of God. When I was 14 years old, I remember the children's home had sent me out to Colorado with a summer camp that was hiking in the mountains. To tell you the truth, that was very hard for me. There was a small group of us, about 5 boys my age, and we hiked up into the mountains for 2 weeks and camped in the mountains the whole time. Quite an adjustment from living in civilization to living off the land. So it was very hard for me, and to add to it, the camp counselors leading us into the mountains were quite harsh. One even threatened violence against me. Anyway, on my last day there, we were driving back, and the van we were in had broke down in Colorado Springs. So we were all waiting in the local park for the van to get fixed, and I clearly remember sitting on the park bench and all of a sudden getting extremely upset. And at one point, I remember clearly having this epiphany. All of a sudden, I knew. My friend Keith Endures had died. I knew it, but I refused to believe it. And I thought, I am just upset, stuck here, wanting to go back. And this is just a crazy response to this frustrating situation. When we got back the next day, my friend Hamie called me and told me that Keith had died yesterday at 10 a.m. The same time I was so upset and had the epiphany. My first response was to deny it. Jamie is joking, but why would he joke about such a thing? Then I told him to tell me the truth. Keith is not dead. He sadly said it was true. Then it started to sink in slowly and painfully, and ever so painfully. I went to the funeral and I could not believe it. When I saw Keith there, I felt he was not there, that this was a fake body, as if the real Keith had left. I was so upset. I became distraught, depressed, and for days I would just wander around walking in a daze. And one day I was walking in my daze in the library, and I stopped and looked up and saw this purple book that caught my eye and reached up and took it off the shelf. It was titled Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody. So I checked it out and read it from front to back, and what it said shocked me and was another huge paradigm shift for me. If these experiences are true, and they seem to be, by all accounts, it means all these things I have been taught by religion are not true. So religion was not true, but an afterlife seemed to be so, as well as a spiritual realm where there was no harsh judgments of the God of the 3 monotheisms. No evil God, no two-faced God. And as a matter of fact, maybe no God at all, or if there was a God, it would be nothing like we make it out to be. As a matter of fact, no hell or no eternal torment of any kind. Only love and understanding. Only love beyond comprehension, a supreme understanding of all. And some claim to encounter some kind of divine being, but it never identified itself as God, divine, or anything such thing, but they said whatever it was so far beyond any comprehension as to be unfathomable. Even with their so-called heightened awareness and access to all knowledge, they still could not comprehend this, I don't know, whatever. This whatever is what I, for lack of a better term, call the source. And in my philosophy, this is where we come from and where we go when we die. So, coming back to this God of the Bible of the 3 monotheisms, what I think, and I am not saying I am right, I could be totally wrong here, as I certainly do not have access to special knowledge anyone else does not. So it is all based upon my reasoning and experiences. And to digress a bit here, I, unlike some of the pious and the New Age self-help gurus, I do value reason and clear thinking, and those who tell you to disregard it or set it aside are to be looked upon with great suspicion. Anyway, I think that whatever is, the source as I call it, is what we would call God. So whatever this source is not the God of the Bible or of any other religion. And this reasoning of mine is all based upon logic, as it has none of the evil characteristics of the God of the Bible, nor any of the disturbing personality traits. And I think calling it God is actually a misnomer, because any attempt to use language to define something that is unfathomable is certain to fail because it limits it by defining it. Which brings me to the idea that religion is man-made. I think religion is man's first attempt at philosophy, and it is not right to say religion did not get it right. I think it is much more nuanced than that, as it did get some things right and some things wrong. And I think this explanation goes a long way in resolving this dilemma described in the last two podcasts. Namely, that we have a character, the God of the Bible, that has a split personality, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, that has one side being a merciful, loving, and kind, and the other side that can be petty, jealous, angry, murderous, and be a megalomaniac. I think it reflects the dual nature of man. Some people are evil and some good, and sometimes this dual nature is found in one man who flip-flops from side to side. And I think it reflects the dual nature of all of us who have within us both good and evil. The God of the Bible is just like man, two-faced. This two-faced God, you can't ignore it because there it is plain as day. You can't explain it away, and you can't justify it. I think Christopher Hitchens' argument that religion poisons everything has something to it. The history, even to this day, is deeply disturbing. With that said, there is still a good side to it that should be preserved, which I think Hitchens never really accepted this good side. So when I say that Yahweh, the God of the Bible, is two-faced, I am saying this is a fact that can be demonstrated by the texts themselves. So there is no need to try to resolve it, to ignore it, to explain it away, or justify it. It is what it is. I think the history of these religions reflect this two-faced God in its good deeds, good people, and in its holy horrors, which were many. Unlike the atheists that simply say this cannot be reconciled, and I think they are right on this point, and rejecting the concept of any God at all, I am saying there is, based upon near-death experiences, something we, in our limited understanding, could call divine, and it is detached from the concepts of man's God or gods. Actually, I do not think there are not any words to really describe the true divine. So for me personally, I do cherry pick because we can't live with such moral schizophrenia. So I accept those inspiring aspects of religion, its words of wisdom, the golden rule, to love one another, its commitment to social justice, compassion for those suffering in our societies, the call to build up one another, and all the other good things while rejecting those things that I abhor, like slavery, genocide, treating women as property, putting homosexuals and witches to death, and so forth. The list of good and bad are quite long, but you get my point. I believe in the Christian concept of redemption, that we all deserve a second chance because none of us are perfect. We all have our failings, our weakness, our foibles. We don't have to see eye to eye to get along. I think we can have a love for humanity, but I do not know if it is possible for us to love everyone. I am still pondering that issue, but I think we can love one another and hold certain people as special to us. I believe in the message of many who have had near-death experiences, which is to love and to learn and to think of how our actions affect those around us, to become better. In part 4, I will address one final issue on this topic, which I find quite interesting, which is a book I read by Joseph Farrell and Scott DeHart called Apocalypse Theater, Yahweh, the Two-Faced God, and you can go on YouTube and listen to an interview with Joseph Farrell on the topic. The title is Yahweh, the Two-Faced God of the Bible. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for tuning into this episode of the Good Medicine Podcast, and as usual, I would like to plug my charity, Sakura Home, which is a home I am attempting to build for the mentally disabled. And this all arose out of a love for my daughter who has Down syndrome. So if you would like to contribute, a P.O. box where you can mail donations is here at the end, or you can contact me and details are in the description. Sincerely and Godspeed, Steve Elliott, Good Medicine.